Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Listen with Vobes. And here he is, the old Voby, one-eyed Kenobi, in the studio, live with you on the 18th of January, December 2020. Just looking there to see what's happened to the lovely Julia. She doesn't seem to be there, which is very unusual. Hope she's okay. Cheers, everybody. I've got a coffee here. Delicious. Let's find out how everybody is on this Friday afternoon. Turbo Stream says, good afternoon. Most miserable and moist in Birmingham. Tall Podge first in the door. Audrey Forbes, nice to see you. Billabong O'Neill, hello to you. Philip Hammond and Mary, good afternoon. The Green Man is with us. A bit damp and foggy on the North Downs. Oh, yes, nasty. Trev's Travels is here, along with, and he says rather damp at Turbo Rugby. Rugby, oh, cool. And Charlie Cooper, hello to you. Who else have we got? Just having a ruffle through. Nigel Sadler, marvellous, lovely to see you. Michael White, hello to you. It's Friday, so I'll call it Poets and listen to the rest from home. Okay, I don't know what you mean by that, but you can call it Poets if you so wish. And Andrew Norris, what ho Vobsters, which is lovely. Lee Lawson, hello all. Linda Kane, hi folks, and good afternoon, says John F. Marvellous. Well, I don't know where Julia is, but we will have to proceed, come what may. Thank you for coming along, and thank you for sticking up your thumbs. We are on chapter 18, I think this is. Dudley Sawyer, he says, I'm sitting in my usual place. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't notice you there. I didn't cast my eye in that direction. You need to adjust the light so I can see you a bit clearer. That's better. There we are. That's much lighter. Dave, of your lovely stained glass photos in your collection, Linda Kane. Oh, the Linda Kane collection, by the way. Vast, vast collection. It did take me a long time to rifle through and find the particular ones that I was after. They're very intricate. Going through the transparencies, very difficult, as you can well imagine, I'm sure. So, here we go. Chapter, whatever it was. We found absolutely nothing to interest or detain us at Trowbridge, which certainly might be our fault, and not that of the place, but it was so. So we were therefore not sorry when the morning arrived, and we must once more renew our rural wanderings. Much out-of-door country life spoils one for towns, especially manufacturing ones. When we set out from Trowbridge, we planned first to drive to Devizes, and from thence, in turn, to strike forth in a southeasterly direction, and to take our chance of the road, so that on starting we hadn't the slightest idea where we should sleep that night. Such uncertainty gave an added zest to our day's wandering. Here we go. The lovely Julia has arrived. Whoa, we were slightly concerned, lovely Julia. We were debating what had happened to you. I know you're very busy at this time of year with things. At Trowbridge, the ostler volunteered the statement that it was a very hilly stage on to Devizes, but we considered the road to be fairly level, with the exception of one long hill when entering the latter town. And as we journeyed, we kept wondering when the collar work was coming, till at last we ceased wondering altogether and concluded that the ostler did not know much of the country, or that he might have recently arrived from some part of the eastern countries where every rise seems to be considered a veritable hill. A gentleman who paid us a visit to Cambridgeshire vouched to me the following story. Taking an early morning walk with his host through part of the country, as flat as a pancake, he was told that at some point there was a good view of some hill. I've forgotten the name now, but that is a detail of no importance to the story. Coming to the spot, my friend could see no sign of a hill and made the remark to that effect. "Wait a bit," replied his companion. "When that hay cart moves on, you'll see it." The scenery, in other words, it was, as flat as anything, and just the slightest rise was hidden by the hay cart. The scenery as we progressed improved with every mile of the way, but beautiful though the country was, it was not of a kind to be readily described. Its charms were of the placid, peace-bestowing order, a happy blending of green meadows, tilled fields, woodlands, enlivened by the gleam of still water, and bounded by low-lying hills of tender blue. And here and there, in the spreading landscape, stood grey old homes, pleasant-looking farmsteads, and many a lowly cottage dwelling, all so mellow and typical of tranquillity that comes of long abiding. The most smooth scenery is Will you be quiet? I've told you. The most soothing scenery is soothing just because it is uneventful, with nothing specially striking about it, nothing for the guidebook compiler to catch hold of, to use an expressive term. Such scenery calls for no strain on the attention of the traveller, but it lulls him with a dreamy sense of repose. It is the essence of peacefulness. Lovely. And on account of this fact, I feel that a driving tour through rural England is the very, very perfection of a real and restful holiday. However, we are not at all cast in the same mould. There are some people who really find a rest after the rigid routine of professional work or dry drudgery of business in rushing about as fast as rail and steam will carry them, and verily I believe they would go faster if they could. But paradoxical as it may appear, I maintain you cannot travel fast and far and see very much. At one point where the road dipped down, we had a curious spectacle presented to us. On what appeared to be a straight stretch of grassy upland, well above the highway and the surrounding country, a large sailing barge appeared. At least the sail of it did, moving slowly along. Manifestly, this was an elevated canal, but at first sight, from our point of view, it did look strange to see a large barge sailing so much above the level of the surrounding land. This canal ascends the long hill to Devizes, a town that stands high up in the world by a series of no less than 39 locks. We did not count them all, but we were told that was the number. These locks, one after the other, follow up alongside of the road, or nearly so, but I am progressing too fast. We are not yet near Devizes. And here's a question for our boating chap, Trev. Have you ever been on, I guess that must be the Kennet Navan Canal he's talking about there. Have you ever been on that? And have you ever seen one of these barges with the sails up? That way, like that. With the sails up on that elevated stretch. Have you seen that? That's, going back a bit. I'd love to know. Lovely, Julia. Strange comments were coming up, but no Richard. Had to refresh. Oh. Turbo Stream says, ooh, cake and biscuits. Philip Hammond says, Mary, yes, please, Julia. And Cane Hill says, Trev's Travels. Is that on? Oh, that's Cane Hill, is it? Excellent. Thank you very much. You see, we have knowledge from all sorts on this show. Not from here. There's no knowledge coming from me. The day was sunny and warm, and at a pretty spot where some leafy overhanging trees cast a welcome shadow upon the road, we pulled up for a while to rest and refresh our horses, and to allow them the costless luxury of a handful of freshly plucked grass. Just opposite this spot, a rutty and narrow path led down to an old watermill with a tranquil pool in front, fed by a clear flowing stream that turned the big mill wheel. This stream was crossed by a grey old bridge, and close to the building were an ancient dovecot and row of beehives. Beyond, a winding lane led past some pretty cottages and up a wooded bank, and then disappearing in a mass of cool greenery. Mill, shimmering and gliding water, old cottages, dovecot, the deep green meadows around and the tree-clad hill behind, framing all together, formed a charming picture, and forcibly reminded us of Tennyson's painting in verse. I love the brimming wave that swam through quiet meadows around the mill, the sleepy pool above the dam, the pool beneath it never still. The meal sacks on the whitened floor, the dark round the dripping wheel, the very air about the door made misty by the floating meal. That is a verse that constantly comes to my mind whenever I see an old weathered weather and water mill up there on the hill with the river 6 miles below. I always think of that verse of Tennyson. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward. Oh no, that wasn't the one, was it? I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high and vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake beneath the tree, they nestle soft as babies, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, like Magnus Pike with rabies. This spot, we were told, was called Send Head, a retired nook that abounds in alluring subjects for the sketcher from nature. Driving on, Magnus Pike with rabies. That's from the Burkus Way to Dynamic Living. For those of you who remember the Burkus Way to Dynamic Living. Does anybody remember the Burkus Way to Dynamic Living? Fantastic Radio 4 programme of the 70s. Driving on, we soon came to another wayside beauty bit, where the same pleasant stream was crossed by another one-arched bridge and another ancient mill close by, and a gable of a thatched cottage just beyond, peeping above a wealth of foliage, completed the prospect. Our road that day was nothing but a succession of pictures, and our sketchbook and hand camera were called into frequent requisition. The latter so much so that our day's supply of film was soon exhausted. David Vure, Wordsworth. Yes, there's all good bit of Wordsworth there with Magnus Pike. The sails were not normally used to wind or to wind. Oh, to wind, yes, I suppose. Nigel Sadler, the Burkus Way was brilliant, still repeated on 4 Extra from time to time. Yes, I remember recording it on cassette tape. And then some years later, when I was doing the Vogue show as a podcast, I was quoting bits from it. My name is Jobs. Jobs is my name. There's some very hilarious bits in there. Lord Russian emigre and what have you. And Fred Harris, Nigel Rees, Joe Kendall and Chris Emmett. What a team. What a team. One of the funniest radio programmes on the radio. And then I've got the collection on MP3 somewhere. Every one. And every now and again, I just have to put it on. It is hilarious. Anyway, one of the best radio programmes there ever was, comedy-wise. There was a lot of cheap imitations. A little further on, we noticed the rather quaint Bell Inn that stood close to the side of the way, but a few feet below the level of the road. We presumed that since the house was built, the road had been raised there. I didn't read that very well, but I'm not going back now. On a weather-stained and worn sign nailed on the side of the gable of the building, we read the date 1698, so that the old inn has outlived many generations of travellers and seen many changes in the mode of travel. Its early landlords would have been astonished could they have known that iron and steel horses would pass its door in the shape of the slow, lumbersome traction engine and the speedy, lightsome cycle. What would they make of the electric car? In a little way beyond this old inn we entered the village of Send, or Seend. I'm not quite sure how it's pronounced. A charming pretty... It's got two E's in, Seend. A charming pretty spot, and amongst the delightful homes of the past days, that line is wide... What? A charming pretty spot, and amongst the delightful homes of past days, that line is wide and quiet... That line is wide and quiet street one... I'm sorry, I'm just struggling to actually read a sentence here, which is a bit weird. A charming, pretty spot, and amongst the delightful homes of past days, that line its wide and quiet street, thank you, got it, one especially attracted our attention. It was a cottage built somewhat in the Tudor style, with a great chimney projecting on one side of the roadway and having a sundial on the top. There was plenty of character about that pleasant abode. I like a house with character. It makes it at once interesting and individual, and character in a building need not be a costly gift, for a cottage may possess it to the fullest degree, and a palace may be utterly without it. It is the misfortune of the mechanical age that it makes for a dead level of uniformity in both people and buildings. What a ding, ding, ding picturesque feature a sundial is on a house. And it is sometimes a useful one too. So is a well-designed weather vane and a bell turret. Actually, the Vobes Towers has all of those things. You may not realise that, but we do have them on the top of the house. Cluttered we are with these antiquated unnecessaries. So a well-designed weather vane and a bell turret, yes, all these are comparatively small items, yet they often give an interest to a structure that otherwise would have no claim to be noticed by a passer-by. True, very true. Very few people actually noticed my enormous weathercock. They very rarely notice any other kind of cock, but let's not go down that one. Mate. Is that the time on your cock? No. Anyway, the church at Send. Anybody know what it is? What is it? Is it Send? Anybody know? Nobody knows. The church at Send is interesting chiefly from its lovely position it occupies on the crest of a gentle hill, and the glorious view to be had from thence over many tinted woods in the vale below to the long line of undulating hills beyond. Not a roof tree did we see in the garden and extensive panorama. What do you mean, roof tree? The churchyard is beautifully kept. It is a god's garden rather than a god's acre, and bears the same relation to the average churchyard that a garden does to a field. In the porch of the church we noticed a collecting box. For the churchyard, it said, so we robbed it blind and ran quickly before anyone noticed. And it seemed to us very fit and proper the thing would be the last resting place of the nip-nap, paddywhack, give the dog a bone, try and read it better, or we'll stick you off the throne. It seemed to us a very fit and proper thing that the last resting place of the beloved dead should be cared for tenderly thus. It is surely somewhat inconsistent with the fabric of a church It is surely somewhat inconsistent that the fabric of a church should be carefully maintained without and adorned within, but too often the churchyard where the sacred dead lie sleeping is neglected and allowed to become the home of rank grasses and crumbling tombstones. Little does he know that actually the Vobes prefers crumbling tombstones and what he calls as rank grass. I love it. I love the grass when it's about 3 foot high. And you've got and wild flowers are up, and the butterflies and the bees and various invertebrates are in there doing their thing, instead of something that's mown to death. I find that, because all the dead people in there are decaying and what have you, and providing life for those wild flowers. That would be much better. One could well spare some of the modern Minton tiles on the floors, the 19th century garish stained glass windows in the walls, the crudely carved raridoos above the altar, the obtrusive bright brass lectern of stock pattern fresh from Birmingham that are supposed to adorn and beautify sundry of our country churches, and do with simpler things, if only the solemn graveyard were better cared for. How can an artist feel in a proper frame of mind for worship, seated in a church with a staring, badly designed, defectively drawn and hideously coloured stained glass window before him to torment his eye and vex his soul? Has he not rifled through the Linda Kane collection and found some amazing pieces of glass that are on display in Felpham? Would he not 1,000 times rather see a bit of unspoilt nature through a pretty leaded light window? Who knows? Entering Devizes, we passed, at the junction of two roads, a small castellated building that looked much like an old toll gatehouse, in spite of its crenellated walls and the grandly sounding title of Shane's Castle it bore. Shane? What a horrible Shane. Is anybody called Shane out there? It's a horrible name, isn't it? Shane. It's like Wayne. Shane's Castle. But wait, surely Shane, the name Shane, has not come into common parlance or usage before, what, the 1980s? Isn't Shane a 1980s name? I know there's a book by the same title that is all about a man trying to get rid of a stump out of the back garden, if ever you've read Shane. It's a shame. Anyway, we asked an old man why it was so called, and he replied laconically, "'Cause it is, I suppose. I don't know no other reason." And he even appeared astonished that we should ask the question. "I don't believe you've asked me that question. I really don't believe it. I must go and have a sit down and chew on the cud for a bit." At Devizes, we rested a while at the sign of the Bear, a famous coaching house and one of the best patronised on the road, it having a reputation for good dinners and wines, warm feather beds, and for a landlord who read Milton and whose son recited his poems. A curious mixture, it seems to me. One can hardly fancy a modern hotel being famous for its feather beds, nor do I think that it would be any attraction for a modern traveller to know that the landlord thereof read Milton, and I'm afraid that they would consider it rather a bore than a pleasure to have to listen to a youth reciting poems. "There was an old lady from Bombay who slid down the stairs on the tray. Bumped into the Queen, said, 'Silly old bean, you should have got out of the way.'" As we were looking round the hotel, our eyes alighted on a portrait engraving hung on the staircase wall and having the following inscribed below: "Sir Thomas Lawrence's father, former landlord of the Bear Hotel." Whereupon we sought out the landlady. "Landlady! Landlady! This way, if you please." And learnt from her that Mr. Lawrence used to keep the Bear, and his son, I don't know whether he kept his son or whether his son also kept the Bear, that's a bit confusing. Afterwards, the famous Sir Thomas, and his son, afterwards the famous Sir Thomas Lawrence, as a boy, would draw likenesses of his father's guests, much to their amusement and to his father's profit, that is, when he was not reciting Milton to them in between games of cards, as tradition asserts. Fancy Milton and gambling. What men our forefathers were. Talk for yourself, I only had one of them. Shall we have a look at the picture of the bear? I think we should. I don't know. What connect entering Devizes? Oh, yeah, Devizes. The bear that Devizes. Let's have a little gander and see what we get. Where's the mouse gone? Where is the mouse gone? Where is... It's in your hand. Yes. I know. Where's the keyboard? Ah, not so easy to find is the keyboard. Oh, excuse me, there's a burp. The bear. Oh, I better put devices in, I suppose. Otherwise, Devices, the bear. Nice. The Bear Hotel. There is a hotel called the Bear. Oh, right, let's have a look at the images. Images, images, stick it up your nose and here we go. Is that a nice one? That's 800 by 400. I want a bigger one than that. What about that one? 800 by 400. What about that? It's even smaller. 800 by 400. Oh, for goodness sake. How big is that? Oh, you dreadful people. Size? Any size? No, large. Just give me large ones. How big is... Oh, that looks like a big one. Yeah, there we go. Oh, you were supposed... There we are, look at that. There's the Bear Hotel in Devizes. The bare necessities of life will come to me. Shane is mainly a masculine given name. It is an Anglo-sized version of the Irish name Seagahan. Oh, right. Which itself is cognate to the name John. How do you get from Seagahan to John? Shane comes from the way the name Sean is pronounced in the Ulster dialect of the Irish language, as opposed to Sean or Sean. Right. Thanks for that. A lot of people talking about that out there in the land of... I can't find Miss Sodding Mouse. Where is it? There it is. Linda Kane says this is the part which was largely destroyed in the fire of 1816. The castle gradually increased in size over the years until approximately 1780, when it had become a very fine castellated structure. Oh. Not to mention Shane Fenton, great name for the Wild West, says Dudley Saw. Yeah, the cowboy Shane made the name popular. Alan Ladd. Oh, there was a film, wasn't there? There was a film. Alan Ladd. He was a small bloke, wasn't he, if I remember? He was a midget. Hello, Shane from London. There are images, says Linda Kane. Of what? What are we talking about there? I don't know what you're talking about there. The castle. Oh, castle. Is that the castle in Devizes? What am I doing? Castle Devizes. The Castle Devizes. Oh, that's in France, the Castle in Devizes. Oh, wow, look at that. Oh, you can't. Hang on, just a mo. Look at that. Isn't that a dream of a castle? Come on. Wait, that's not a castle. This is a bloody Seville. Come on, Savile. Bloody Jimmy, isn't it? Right, here we go. Look at that. Now, that's what you call a home, isn't it? Wow. That, of course, is, what, Georgian, I suppose. That's not a real castle. Real castles don't look like that. That's some sort of mock. Surely that is a mock castle. Isn't it? What do you reckon? Where's the information?
Where's the informazione, huh? Where is it? Where is the information?
Let's see. Castle home, Swin, castle updated. Yes. Well, I want the history of it, please. What is the history of this castle? Castle Devizes had its origins. Oh. Its origins about 1080 as an early Norman motte and bailey with wooden palisade and tower. The wooden castle burnt down, not surprised. Its successor was built in stone, became an important castle, and was described by contemporary chroniclers as the finest and most splendid in Europe. I can't believe that image, though, is from any time of Norman period. That must... I mean, it's a fairy tale castle, isn't it? Isn't that? The castle looks like a stage set, says Lee Lawson. Exactly, I can't believe it is. Bloody medieval gatehouse. Oh, the gatehouse there is supposed to be medieval. Well, anyway, we've moved on. We're in the Bear. The bare necessities of life will come to you. You know who you are. You know who you are. Who was the other culprit? Oh, yeah. You know who you are. that arrived in the post. But there's some others in the post that have arrived, actually. They're in the other room. Shh, don't say anything yet. We've got the Vogue show to go to yet. Anyway, an original and very valuable painting by Sir Thomas Lawrence used to hang up in the hotel, we were told, but it was stolen one day. Nothing seems sacred from the collector. Even an ordinary visitor's book in which some famous man has written his name is to be kept under lock and key, lest someone should tear the page out for the sake of the signature. The landlady, observing what interest we took in the place, called the police. What? No, sorry. Most kindly showed us over the ancient house. The exterior view of the hotel, as seen from the stables, had, she informed us, been painted by a well-known artist, and the old hall had also been painted in a picture called The Masqueraders, which had been exhibited in the Academy. I don't know which academy, but an academy, presumably. To country people, by the way, the fact of having a picture exhibited in the Academy, didn't we have this conversation? That rings a bell. Somebody mentioned that the Academy was somewhere, proves beyond the question of a doubt that it must be the work of rare merit. And a statement having appeared in print causes it to be accepted as second only in authority to the Bible itself, which shows the glamour of a name and the virtue of print. I think that's still true, isn't it? I think that is still true. Dudley Sawyer says, I've got that castle on the lid of my biscuit tin. How nice. Yes, it looks like the current castle is Victorian, according to Google. Yes, I'm not at all surprised. It did look a bit, I mean, it just looked like, not a genuine castle. Probably sneeze and it'll tumble down. Besides its old associations, one of the charms of the hotel to us on that hot day was its delicious coolness. These old buildings, with their thick walls, in which material was not stinted, and their honest construction, do keep out the heart of the midsummer sun as well and the winter cold. Do they? Good, straightforward building. It costs more money in the first place, pays best in the end, except to the speculative contractor who builds houses to sell. It costs less to maintain and saves considerably on coal bills in the winter, to say nothing of the comfort and the freedom from draughts and their attendant ills. Speculative building is one of the curses of the age. More disease and suffering is caused by scamped building than the world wots of. Than the world wots of. W-O-T-S. I don't know what that means. Wots of. Devizes is a clean, airy, pleasant town, and anyone in search of fresh woods and pastures new, in the way of a holiday outing, might do worse than make their headquarters there for a time and explore the very interesting country around. In the centre of the extensive marketplace stands a market cross, on one side of which runs a long and curious inscription, a portion of which I give here. This is just a portion, bear in mind. The Mayor and Corporation of Devizes avail themselves of the stability of this building to transmit to future times the record of an awful event which occurred in this marketplace in the year 1753. On Thursday, the 25th of January, 1753, Ruth Pierce of Potterne, in this county, agreed with 3 other women to buy a sack of wheat in the market, each paying her due proportion towards the same. One of those women, in collecting the several quotas of money, discovered a deficiency and demanded of Ruth Pierce the sum which was waiting to make good the amount. Ruth Pierce protested that she had paid her share and said she wished that she might drop down dead if she had not. She rashly repeated this awful wish when, to the consternation and terror of the surrounding multitude, she instantly fell down and expired, having the money concealed in her hand. "Be careful what you say, you liars!" Liars, every one of you. Every last one. What an amazing inscription to put on the thing. I have heard that before. I don't think I've actually seen it. I've been to Devizes. It's a lovely place. Oh, what's his face? He of 6 English towns and 6 more English towns. What was his name? That bloke, who did the TV series. I've got several of his books. We had this before. I couldn't remember his name before. Alec, not Alec Gordon. Tripled Borough. Alec Clifton Hayes or something. Alec, what's his name? You know his name. Alec, lovely bloke. Wrote a fantastic book. I've got a really good book by him. A different book. What was his name? Alec Clifton. Alec. Anyway, me repeating it doesn't make it actually get any clearer. Alec Clifton Taylor. Yes, thank you so much. There we go. I've emailed you my Christmas card, Richard. Hint taken. I've emailed you my Christmas card. Yes, Linda Kane. I read it out in the show yesterday, Linda Kane. Oh, wait a minute. Who said that? I've emailed you my Christmas card. Oh, that was... Sorry, I got confused because Linda Kane's got medieval immediately. But that's Lee Lawson. I beg your pardon. Have you? I haven't seen it. I have not seen it. Look at the chat, says Andrew Norris. I'm looking at the chat, thank you. You've got to remember there's a time capsule. We left Devizes early in the morning, bound eastward, having determined simply to drive on until we arrived at some inviting wayside hostelry there to spend the night. Just at the outskirts of town, we observed a triangular, built-on plot of ground, bounded by roads and curiously called the Island. From this point our road gradually rose and took us alongside of a great barren down. At a certain point here, a rough track left the highway and climbed the hill. Where the two ways met stood a tall monument with a lion rampart carved in stone on the top. The lion had, however, an iron tongue and tail. We at once called a halt. Whoa! Wait a second. Whoa, I said. Whoa. To discover, if possible, the purport of this striking structure, for such wayside erections, snigger, are rare in England, and when we do come upon one, we always make a point of inspecting it. Let's have a look at your erection, if you don't mind, sir. Oh, nice. Yeah, anything to oblige. My lion's got an iron tongue, don't you know? Carved on one side of the stone is a long inscription, which I give in part as follows. Cui Collier Coluntur Anni Domini 1771. A very long part. Oh, here we go. This monument was erected to the memory of James Long, whose public spirit was remarkably exerted in planning, promoting and completing this new road, Anno Domini 1678, by which a former tedious and dangerous way over the adjacent hill is avoided, to the great pleasure and convenience of travellers, in recto dectus, or some such bit of Latin for you. In another mile or so, we reached a pretty village with a decayed coaching inn, but this did not look sufficiently inviting to induce us to pull up. No, drive on, driver. No, we're not going in there. No, look at the hideous place. Look at the people in there. Look, they all look heathens. That man, look at him. He's only got one eye. He's bald. Come on, move on, quick. From this point, we approached the borders of a hilly plain of Salisbury. Wait a minute, where are they rambling to? Because, Salisbury, they're coming back. Are they coming back? Can't be coming back. It was right over in Devizes a second ago. How can you be coming back to Salisbury? The landscape gradually assumed, this man is mad. I mean, I thought Walter I thought Walter Wilkinson was mad. This bloke's even worse. We had now before us a long, open, treeless stretch of road with grass-grown banks on either side in place of the familiar hedgerows. Away to the north, across a level extent of country, we saw another white horse cut into the steep surface of the chalk downs that bounded the prospect in the direction. It is astonishing how many figures of this kind still exist in England. This is the fourth we'd come across on this tour. Only now, when nearly everyone travels by train, they are seldom seen, except by the local inhabitants. What this special white horse was called, we did not know, so questioned a shepherd, who, with sundry others, was refreshing himself outside the public house.
What? Say, boy? Was the horse? Which horse is it you're... Oh, that great horse there in the side of the hill, that one. Reg? What is that horse called? Reg, wake up, you idiot. Wake, old... Well, mister, let me tell you, it be Alton horse, he said. Did say, actually. You don't have to put words in my mouth. I can speak for myself. Thank you very much. We've been on these hills here with my sheep. And my little sheepdog. Here, little sheepdog. Come on, Bessie. You all right there, Bessie? Lovely little sheepdog, that is. Lovely sheepdog, that is. Oh, what a sheepdog it is my Bessie. Lovely. Anyway, he said he could tell us nothing of its history, which I think was plainly evident. Then another man of the company put in his word, and in a blunt manner that would scarcely be polite even in Shoreditch society.
It bain't Alton horse, it be Crichton horse.
At least we understood him to say Crichton, but he couldn't spell it.
Crichton. Cry. I can't spell it, mate.
But as he couldn't spell it, I may be wrong in my rendering. Then an altercation sprang up between the two parties as to whether it was an Alton or Crichton horse.
Yeah, you say it's bloody Alton, I'll have you. Step outside. I'm not stepping outside, it's all to you. I can stay here and drink my scrumpy. You have a bloody cheek.
Yes, and I have a forehead and a nose. So what you going to do about it?
I advise you to tell that bald one with glasses to carry on reading. We are getting a little upset with one another, and we're mythological characters in his mind.
Oh yes, so you are. I forgot. We felt rather inclined to pronounce for Alton, as the champion for Crichton had a beery look on his face that suggested to us that he might not be completely sober. The other country folk said nothing, but drank their beer in stolid silence. Then the original two who had spoken began to dispute the point so hotly that we deemed it best to hasten to the dog cart and get out of there like a bat out of hell. Depart is what he actually wrote. Shortly afterwards, we consulted our map and found the place marked Alton, corresponding closely with the direction in which the white horse appeared to be. And so, rightly or wrongly, we gave our verdict for Alton.
It ain't bloody Alton.
All right, calm down. Just saying. It's very difficult sometimes. These characters leap out of the book and brain you one. Linda Kane is talking to Narrow Boat by Trevor. It means that... what are you talking about, canvas or? He's using the same compass as Walter Wilkinson, says Lee Lawson. Yes, exactly what I thought. That's exactly it. Michael White says, by law, we are still supposed to be out in the village green Sundays practising our long barrows. I think Cromwell banned Christmas pudding. Don't tell Boris. Oh, my goodness, don't. We soon will not be able to put sixpence in the mix. Anyway, where are we? On the right of our road now rose a massive rounded down, inscarped on the top. Another consultation of our map showed this to be Casterly Camp.
Oh, Casterly Camp? Anyone cool?
The most perfect British earthwork there is. In an age when much of the land was a wild tangle of forests, the Aborigines of Britain, good day there, Cobber, appeared to have congregated on the open uplands, and I should imagine that these large camps were really fortified towns, for as simple fortresses they are needlessly large, a fact also that would make them more difficult to defend on account of the number of men required, besides entailing quite unnecessary labour in the construction. Furthermore, from examining many of these ancient camps, I should conjecture that the top of the escarpments was provided with a palisade of wood, or some similar additional defence, usually purchased from IKEA. Otherwise, the mere earthworks might be rushed and would scarcely be sufficient to render a camp tenable, especially against a sudden night attack. This is all pure guesswork on my part, but when proof of any kind is impossible, inferences may be allowed. I think I shall use that when I'm doing my Bald Explorer. Well, when proof of any... this building is very old, but when proof of it is there, inferences may be allowed. Thank you. Just beyond the encamped down, the charming village of Charlton came into view in the valley below, making a very pretty picture with its thatched cottages embowered in trees, from which cottages curling films of blue smoke arose, and its flint-built church standing in an open spot apart from itself. Here, by the roadside, we remarked a rural inn, and at the porch thereof some much-worn mounting steps, graphic reminders of the vanished past, when the roads hereabout, and especially across the plain, were mere bridle tracks, rough even at that, and farmers and their wives, and in fact all travellers southwards, had to journey on horseback or afoot. Primitive and picturesque times those, pleasant to romance about, and to exclaim, "How delightful!" to oneself, which is, in the bright and sunny summer weather, perhaps not so suggestive of delights when the... That is, in the bright and sunny summer weather, but perhaps not so suggestive of delights when the cold storms of winter are raging. A little leaven of fact oftentimes makes a good deal of the guilt of romance away. I don't know what he's talking about there. He's gone a little bit bonkers. He does seem to be heading back. He never really told us that he was heading back, did he? He never really said anything about that. At the foot of the... What are you looking at? At the foot of the Great Bear Downs here, downs that were impressive on account of their mass and extent, if not their height, in sheltered hollows were green wooded nooks, very refreshing to look upon, coming in such sudden and sharp contrast with the bleak hills above, on which neither tree or shrub was visible. There is a restful sense in harmony that is dreamy and soothing, but a vigorous mind contrast appeals most. I don't know, yes, I agree, he's talking rubbish again. A drop in the road took us into one of those sheltered nooks, where we found the pretty and prosperous village of Rushall, or Rush Hall. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, Rushall. And we felt inclined to rest there at the inn for the night, but the horses appeared so fresh, and in the late afternoon, with the lengthening shadows, was so cool and pleasant, we were determined to drive on, and tempt fortune further. We will tempt fortune further. It's a good idea. After travelling so long and for so far, this was perhaps a rare and rash thing to do, as we were now entering upon lonesome Salisbury Plain. Wait a minute. Didn't Tickner Edwards enter lonesome Salisbury Plain? Didn't he end up sleeping in a railway carriage? Didn't he do a photograph of it in the last book? This is sounding very similar. but we felt in a careless, adventurous mood. We were so thoroughly enjoying ourselves. The fresh, cool air was a delight to us, and the wild scenery just suited our present humour, so we felt impelled to be mildly reckless. On, therefore, we went, and turning southward, ascended into the vast, shelterless region of Salisbury Plain. A long stretch of open road brought us to the hamlet of Upavon, or Up upon Avon, or some such, a picturesque dim collection of old cottages gathered around a very ancient time-worn church. Here we met a former friend in the Avon that we last saw at Ringwood 17 years ago. As wide and spreading a river. At this spot in the heart of the hills it is quite in its infancy, a little narrow, humble chalk stream. At Up Avon we baited our hard-worked horses at a primitive inn called the Antelope. It was not an ideal hostel with bay windows, an ample porch, a pleasant garden, and all that, but the landlord was most civil and ushered us into a tiny sitting room. In here, come on, get in there. Get in there, hurry up. Very clean, though poorly furnished, but somewhat stuffy for the want of an open window. Anybody open the window? Can you open it? I can't open the window. It's bloody locked down. Look at it. Somebody's screwed it down. I don't know. What's the matter with them? Possibly the landlord considered that he had a superabundance of fresh air here without emitting any more of the forces of it in unbidden during a blustery weather. However, he provided us with an excellent tea, which greatly refreshed us. That was nice tea, wasn't it? Yes, lovely, dear. We might possibly have put up for the night at this remote inn, as the stables were good, and the house, if humble, was clean, but it was not to be. Oh, no. On making inquiries if we could be accommodated, and if we could see a bedroom before finally deciding, the landlord informed us that his wife was ill in bed with the rheumatics. She's in bed with the rheumatics. You can't possibly stay here. And that he could really not manage to put us up without her. I can't do it, you see. I just can't do it. She's got the rheumatics. She's in bed. I mean, I would love to put you up, but I'm afraid I can't. I just can't. So we inquired of the road ahead and learnt that about 5 miles further on, at East Eveleigh, there was an inn where we might perhaps be accommodated. But there was no other inn on the road, he believed, between Everley and Andover, a good 17 hilly miles away. You're doomed if you go any further, Captain Mannering. Doomed you must stay at Everley. Take these with you. What are they? Batteries. Batteries. Everley ready batteries. Thanks, we can put them in our electric dog cart. This was not altogether acceptable news. What if the hotel at East Eveleigh were full? There was the rub. Will they get to the hotel? Will they find the dog cart will break down in a rut? Will the hills engulf them? And will they end their days in cold, chilly night? You can't leave him there, Mr. Derrick. Find out. Next week, when we return to On Southerly Roads by James John Hissey, whatever his name is, having a fissy. We were in a dilemma, and there was no mistake in that. So, I'm going to leave it there, ladies and gentlemen, at 5-2. Not acceptable news. What will they do? Oh, leaving you on a bit of an edge there. Oh, my God, how will they ever get out of it? Who knows? You will be on those tenterhooks. Ooh, nasty. Until Mundaddy comes. But Mundaddy will come. And we may be in Tier 4 by then. But have no fears. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have a look, see what you're talking about. Got home, says Nigel Sadler. Tried to watch this on our TV, but it claims the stream is locked, so it can't be watched that way. What are you talking about? Anyone else watching on a smart TV? I'm on a laptop now. My TV's not very smart, I'm afraid. It went out last night, got a bit drunk. It looks very shabby. It's got a terrible thing. Only one ding, 2 dings. We've had 2 dings. Turbo Stream, I'm watching on a smart TV, Nigel. Seems okay to me. You've lost the key, that's the trouble. That's what it is, Nigel. I can't even cast to my phone. Oh, God. You need a proper rod. Dudley Saw says, watching on the phone seems to work okay. Works well on Chromecast, says Billabong O'Neill. Nigel Sadler. The Rheumatics, all of them. That's 1980s punk band. Yes, they were all in bed with her. We can't go any further with that because that's all ex-certificate. Needless to say, a smaller band of very young were there later on. I'm on my laptop. Sometimes I watch on the TV via my flick stick. Is that like a knife? Flick knife? Yeah. Call that a knife? That's not a knife. That's the Vobes on the casting stone. Linda Kane says, think it should be Everly, not Eversley. Could be. Definitely wasn't spelt that way, but you could be right. We know how... Was he the one that changed? Or no, it was Tickner who changed sleep... What was it? Slumberwell. Do you remember Slumberwell? Do you remember the debacle of Slumberwell? That takes us back to a time, doesn't it? Oh, the debacle of Slumberwell. I remember that. Thank you, Richard, says Charlie Cooper. Very good. Thanks, Richard. You made it entertaining this afternoon. Thanks, Richard. Over and out, says Dudley Sawyer. That's it. Over and out. Kirk to Enterprise. Beam me up, Scotty. That's it for today. Back again this evening at 8 o'clock. But in the meantime, I have a pie to shove in the oven and finish off a video and then edit. Never bloody stops here, does it? It never bloody stops. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for Julia for moderating and making sure everybody was doing what they were bid. And thank you for you. And thank you to Dave of Yore for the card. You know who I mean. And until next time, arrivederci. See you on Monday for the next Listen with Vobes. Tutty bye. Sodding Slumberwell. Yeah, we remember that.